Good morning and welcome to the 2023 Chancellor's Lecture featuring Dr. Shantay Bolton. I'm Angie Bernardi and I'm honored to be the president of the Women's Society at Washington University. Sorry, we're starting a few minutes late. We appreciate your patience with the parking. Thank you for taking the time to join us. We're thrilled to see so many of you in person and also online via live stream. Many of you are members of the Women's Society, but for those of you who aren't, I don't want to miss this opportunity to invite you to join us. Membership in the Society will allow you many opportunities to gather throughout the year and attend our lecture series featuring prominent faculty and members of our WashU community. The Women's Society was an organization that was created to bring the community to the university and the university to the community. We're a group of volunteers of all ages and backgrounds supporting the university and appreciate the valuable asset it is to our community. We're also proud partners in supporting students and bringing to life Chancellor Andrew Martin's vision of Washington University to be in St. Louis for St. Louis. The Women's Society also oversees the Bare Necessities Shop, which is located in Umrath House on South 40. The shop, which you can visit in person or online, features unique WashU logo items and clothing that cannot be found anywhere else on campus. All the proceeds support our Elizabeth Gray Danforth Scholars and student projects, so next time you need WashU merchandise, please stop by and visit. Through the generous philanthropy of our members and friends, our scholarship endowment has grown to over $6 million. Thank you. Thank all of you for your donations. And this has allowed us to support a number of wonderful programs and events for our students each year, as well as to award 2 full Washington University scholarships to St. Louis community college students each year. Before I move on, I would like to take a moment to remind everyone that our next lecture will take place on Wednesday evening, February 15th, here in Emerson Auditorium, and it will highlight Dr. Hillary Anger Elfenbein from Olin Business School, who's with us today as well, who will present the lecture, Women at the Negotiation Table, Insights from New Research on Personality. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Pamela Henson, Executive Vice Chancellor for University Advancement and one of 2 members of the Chancellor's Cabinet with us today. Pam oversees all advancement activities for the university, leading a staff of 500. Pam is the first woman to have been named Executive Vice Chancellor at Washington University. Before her appointment as Executive Vice Chancellor in 2019, Pam had served as Vice Chancellor for Alumni and Development Programs. In this role, she led the effort to raise an unprecedented $3.38 billion in support of the Leading Together campaign. She's now at the helm of the new Make Way campaign to raise funds for undergraduate scholarships, graduate student education, and the total student experience at WashU. And we know this too will be a record-breaking campaign in support of our students. When Pam first came to Washington University 30 years ago this month, she served as the Regional Director of Development, then as Director of Capital Projects, and later as Executive Director of Development for the Alvin J. Siteman Cancer Center. My understanding is that she even helped support the Women's Society scholarship fundraising efforts at one point. Thank you, Pam. Pam's career began at the United Way of the Desert in Palm Springs and at the University of Redlands. She holds a bachelor's degree in communications from the University of Michigan. We're truly honored to have her here with us today. Please join me in welcoming Pam. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you so much. It's 30 years tomorrow, I think. It's the 25th. So it's hard to believe when I came here, I did not think I would still be here 30 years later, but this is a great institution and I just couldn't leave. And I didn't raise all that money in the last campaign by myself. There are a lot of very able-bodied, wonderful colleagues in university advancement who have been dedicated to the mission of this university. So thank you all for allowing me to come up and just say a few words, and I have the pleasure of making an introduction this morning as well. I'm so grateful to the Women's Society for your dedication and support of students, especially those coming from the St. Louis Community College system. I was engaged with Women's Society many years ago as Director of Capital Projects. One of your former presidents, who's now gone, unfortunately, Mary Benke, was a delightful woman. I remember going to an evening at her home where we began to work to increase the endowed scholarship for those students. It was really a wonderful experience to be engaged with many of the members then and the leadership. And really, I appreciate so much the work that all of you continue to do on behalf of our university. This obviously helps us fulfill an important mission of ours, which is education. And as Angie mentioned, Angie, thank you for that warm introduction, by the way. I did not write that, but perhaps somebody else did. We are dedicated to, right now, a new initiative that we launched this past fall in October called Make Way, which is focused entirely on our students, undergraduate, graduate students. It is meant to be increasing the amount of financial aid that we have available for those students in each of those areas. So all of our schools, including the medical school, the law school, business, all of those programs are a part of this. And another significant portion of that effort is to increase the resources to support our students once they're here on campus. And I would just like to say, I think, that's such an important part of what we do. I think this institution has had a long history and reputation as a great undergraduate program. I think that we've had very strong graduate programs, but when you bring students here from all different backgrounds and all different levels of preparation, life experience, you want them to each have the same opportunities afforded to them and the type of support and network that they need to be successful. One of the reasons I am still here after so many years is because I see how hard my colleagues at the university work to support those students. And as we all know, there continue to be increases in issues of mental health, health and wellness in general, as well as important areas, and I think you can agree with this, leadership development. How do you develop those skills that our students need to go out into the world and be successful? So that is our effort right now that we're engaged in. I'm pleased to report that we have already raised $330 million in this initiative, and we will continue to do so while we are also working on the university's strategic plan. That plan is now public and available on the university's website and focuses on some very important areas that build on the strengths of this great institution. And that will eventually lead to a very sharpened focus for us as far as where we need to invest additional resources. Read between the lines, campaign. We don't have the start date for that yet, but we know that that's what we're leading towards. And of course, our student initiative that we are engaged in now will continue, since that is a need that will always be a top priority. While Chancellor Martin is unable to be here with us today, and I am so grateful that his wonderful wife, Stephanie Martin, is here, I know that he shares my appreciation for your hard work and long history of service to the university, the value in providing opportunities for women to engage in the life of the university through education, scholarship, student projects, and leadership development cannot be overstated. In academia and throughout the workforce, it is no secret that there's still a lot of room for improvement, hence the fact that I was the first woman to be appointed as an executive vice chancellor in the history of this institution. That was a long time, and I'm not saying that to pat myself, but I remember when I had one of my early meetings with Andrew Martin, and he realized that that was the case and was rather shocked by that. Well, as you can see today, 89% of the chancellor's cabinet, his executive leadership group, are women. And I will say it's a pleasure to work with all of them, as well as the couple of men that we've got there too, who are, just for all of you in the audience, they're wonderful colleagues, wonderful leaders, highly experienced, and taking this university in all the right directions. Now I'm really pleased, though, to do what I was asked to do this morning, and I'm going to turn this towards me a little bit because I feel like I'm leaning over. I am here to introduce another member of the cabinet, your guest speaker today, and that is Dr. Shantay Bolton. Dr. Bolton, I usually call her Shantay. It's a little weird to read it that way. Dr. Bolton is the Executive Vice Chancellor for Administration and our Chief Administrative Officer here at Washington University. She provides strategic counsel to university leadership and oversees a lot of areas, including parking. Don't worry, she's had a long list of things to work on since she got here, so she's doing so many wonderful things here. But those areas include all of our university operations, technology, human resources, public safety, procurement, supplier diversity, and of course, all of the Danforth campus operations and facilities. We were fortunate to have her join us from Tulane University in 2021. She came here saying she was really glad to leave an area where there were floods. You know what happened recently on North Campus? She was having a little whiplash, but she, again, very ably led us through that next challenge on our campus. At Tulane, she served as Vice President and Deputy Chief Operating Officer and founding director of the Tulane Leadership Institute. Dr. Bolton has served as a board member for the American Association of Blacks in Higher Education. She's also involved in the Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychologist Anti-Racism Grant Subcommittee, and she is the creator of E3, Engage, Educate, Empower, an action learning model for employee engagement and coaching, which she's used to build teams in government, corporate, higher education, as well as nonprofit organizations. She earned her BA in psychology and an MS in counseling psychology from Alabama A&M University. She received her PhD in organizational psychology with a concentration in industrial psychology from Walden University and an MBA in corporate business from Florida International University. Please join me in welcoming my colleague, Dr. Shantay Bolton.
All right, we're going to start with the end in mind. We want to be brilliant and brief in what we will talk about today, but I am just so appreciative to be here. I'm also very thankful for the Women's Society to provide a platform for me to share some of the things that we're doing in operations that are helping the institution achieve the goals in which they want to achieve. If you just give me a brief second here, technology is being defiant. Okay. This is why, as women, we have to learn to be flexible so that we can navigate any situation that comes our way. All right. So I want to start off with first also saying thank you to Pam for the kind words and setting the stage for what I will share with you today. All of this is important to connect back to each other in the elements of work that we do because it is all to support the mission of our university. No matter what role we play at the university, we are here first and foremost to serve the students that grace our campuses, our halls, our classrooms, our residences, our dining facilities, and yes, even our parking garages. All right, deliberate, engaged, transparent, collaborative, and the ultimate possibilitarian. These are the foundational leadership attributes that I've cultivated throughout my career and have allowed me the opportunity to nurture relationships, to be able to move forward aspirational goals of an organization, and to be able to inspire a growth mindset. I'm a firm believer that what we think here will ultimately manifest in our life the outcomes that we are seeking. So it is important to lead with the way that you think about any given issue or problem. The one thing I can guarantee you for sure, that you will fail at something if you never attempt to start. So when I think about higher education, administration as a whole, I truly believe that effective administration absolutely requires us to generate a sense of shared ownership across and between the multiple stakeholders that are on our campus, as well as our alumni, societies like the Women's Society, our trustees, and other community members within the cities and states in which we exist. Some people spend their entire professional career without ever truly fully recognizing what the critical elements of leadership are, while others seemingly grasp a hold to it and they believe you're born with these innate qualities. I have to tell you, I've been working really hard at this. I was not born with this gift. So while I do not subscribe to the belief that leaders are born, I do believe wholeheartedly that there are some things that distinguish people who believe that you're born that way and people who cultivate the skills. And it ultimately comes down to the experiences that we have that are uniquely, they uniquely influence our outlook, our knowledge, and the way in which we engage in the world around us, especially when it is around complex problems. So for me, lessons in leadership did not come from me excelling at something the first time through. I would say that most of what I have learned has been the direct result of failing at something, but failing forward, failing into the learning. And in addition to that, making sure that you surround yourself as a leader with people who are going to be candidly honest with you. In essence, they'll kick your butt and hold your hand at the same time. It's an art, but I have people in my life who have mastered it. Why is it important to start a speech when you're talking about fostering community and empowering people this way? Simply because the sum total of who we ultimately become are a direct result of the journeys we travel in life. Each unique, but oftentimes carrying these common threads that you can leverage to bring teams together around a common goal. I come to you today with more than 2 decades of what I would describe as transformational experience in organizational development, human resource management, constructively disrupting operations, and change management. You see, I am what many in higher education describe as an uncommon higher ed administrator. I've spent 15 years in corporate prior to coming to higher ed. However, I've been able to meet with success because I still apply savvy business practices to some of the challenges that we face in higher ed, as I don't see them as being mutually exclusive. I also believe that when you bring an entrepreneurial spirit to any problem that you're trying to solve, it gives you space and permission to be innovative and creative in coming up with the solutions to what that challenge is. So I was once told that when you deliver a speech on a topic, that you should share why you're qualified to render an opinion. So I'll share some highlights of my background that you might find interesting, and I'll give you sort of the executive summary version of Pam's introduction. I have deep experience in managing large and complex organizations through change. I was invited by the royal family in Saudi Arabia to come and work for the National Guard Health Affairs to support putting into place a talent management system and organizational development framework for 36,000 employees, 80% of which were expatriates, multinationals who spoke different languages, had different cultures, and to coalesce them around one shared vision. Talk about tough work. I also believe I have a talent for guiding, designing, and optimizing cutting-edge business solutions because I believe in entrepreneurship. Having built a small business starting in the back room of one of my foster parents' trailer, it grew to a global consultancy in which I had an opportunity to travel and work with teams around the world. And when you have opportunities to work with individuals who have very strong beliefs that differ from yours, I think it makes you a stronger person, and it also makes you more agile and empathetic. I shared earlier when I was speaking with some of the Women's Society leaders that one of the reasons that I love traveling so much is because I like being the other. Because when I am the other, I am more open to hearing and receiving knowledge from those around me. I don't move through space like a tourist. I am more like a traveler because I want to learn and to appreciate those things that are different so that they can complement what I bring back to the organizations and the teams I serve. I want to make sure that the people I work with know that I see you and I hear you. It doesn't always mean we will agree, because I can tell you there is wonderful discourse and dissenting opinions in higher education, in case that's a newsflash for anyone. But it's also the most beautiful thing about our industry that helps us to be able to realize innovation and meet with success time and time again. We have the privilege, those of us that are on cabinet, to work for a phenomenal and absolutely visionary leader. He has high aspirations and also has high expectations of us to be ambitious in that. Ambitious for the sake of the university, ambitious for the city of St. Louis, for the region that we are in, for the state of Missouri, and to be a leader in higher education. To do that, it is important, absolutely important, that we live into our research mission. It's also absolutely important that we provide academic excellence at every turn. But in order to make sure that the faculty and researchers have the environment in which they can thrive so they can offer the best to our students, we have to make sure that the conditions on the campus that they have to navigate on a day-to-day basis are absolutely nothing but excellent. While I was at Tulane, and I had the privilege of, I would say, really being introduced to what it means to be at a research-intensive, AAU, prestigious institution. It was in many ways, unbeknownst to me at the time, preparing me for the work that I would one day have the honor to do at WashU and in St. Louis. You have to look at things around how you merge ideas, how you elevate voices to create a more inclusive community. There was a lot of work done there because there had been a historical fragment between the institution, its reputation around access, with a city that was majority minority. Sounds a little bit familiar. But what I got most out of that is that even when the work is hard, when you can partner with people who believe in the mission of the institution, who believe in the purpose and the value of that city and its impact on this nation and world, you can achieve extraordinary results. We were able to merge departments. We created new leadership institutes. We also were able to do work that I was told could never be done, and that's to get faculty trained and equipped with the right language, tools, and comfort level to talk about anti-racism and what that meant in the classroom, in the labs, and in our clinics to support holistic perspectives of students, no matter where they came from or their background. Also, during my tenure at Tulane and even in transitioning to WashU, I was able to lead the COVID-19 return to work and return to campus. Oversaw the daily operations. This included us standing up 13 temporary structures. Now, I did not go to school, if you heard my degrees, for construction, but I learned more about how to stand up buildings and to engage in spacing than I ever thought that I would. Seems like it's a disconnect, but what I think is important to know in all of that is that it was about being a champion for the voices and the needs of others who may not have had the place or space to say, this is a concern for us, or we're fearful of this, or we can't really work at our best if we don't have these things. But rolling your sleeves up as a leader and being in it and there in the moment with the team. I currently serve as shared as the Executive Vice Chancellor for Administration and Chief Administrative Officer, where I do have the privilege of providing strategic counsel on university operations. That even includes, as we sit here today, navigating preparation for what may be a winter storm tomorrow. So sometimes my colleagues say, how are you doing two things at once? I have like my secrets. So the people that make up WashU, that make up our community, that are called staff and administrators, They really are committed to ensuring that every life that touches our campus is going to have a positive impact. I wish I could tell you that I can recall this singular catalytic moment in my life or experience that sort of defined the trajectory I'm on, but I cannot. It is important to acknowledge that even in the work that I'm going to share with you that we're doing here, there are incremental ways in which you have to take risk that help you to ultimately get to where you want to be. If I had to reduce the greatest skill set that I have to 2 words, and the greatest risk I've ever taken in my career, and probably, arguably in my life, or at least my husband would say this, it is becoming a constructive disruptor. What does that mean? Constructive disruption means that while I am passionate and eager to raise light and to illuminate issues that affect people, I am equally willing to be a part of the collaboration required to find those solutions. I truly believe that some of the most difficult tasks of leadership are to say the things that need to be said, to spark change, to spark conversation, even at the risk of becoming unpopular or polarized. Because if it goes unsaid, you're not able to get to the other side and realize the solutions you need. I'm laying the foundation intentionally for what I want to share with you, the work that we are embarking upon. Transformational change is the result of recognizing the interdependencies that come from hindsight, looking back to where we've been, from where we've come, to foresight, where are we going? As a leader, when you are part of an institution that is in the midst of change, and I do think we are experiencing radical and transformative change under this administration's leadership, you have to be able to bridge the gap for employees, because sometimes they can get lost in that and frustrated or confused or even feel overwhelmed because you're asking me to do something different and I've been doing this thing here the same way for 15 or 20 or 30 years. You may have been doing something the same way for 20 years. It is not the same as 20 years of experience. It's just 1 year being relived 20 times, right? That is a hard concept for a lot of us to accept and understand. But as a leader, we have a responsibility to set the vision, to empower people, to move the strategy around that vision forward, but to not leave anyone behind. It takes donors and supporters of the institution to help make sure we have the resources to do this, not only for our students and our faculty, but for the staff that ensure that the day-to-day operations are running smoothly. I think if you go through life holding back and hoping someone else will come up with the next big idea or solution, you're gonna miss a great opportunity to do something fun and wonderful. Might be a little messy, but I guarantee you it will be worth it. So let's see if this is working. Now, let's get to the heart of this. I wanna share with you the pieces of what we are focused on in the CAO's office. Most importantly, I start off with cultivating leadership, development, and effectiveness. You can have a great strategy, well thought out, beautifully laid out on a piece of paper. But if you don't have the people that believe in it, that's willing to do the work necessary, it is simply nice words on a piece of paper. And so it is important as an institution, with the changes that we are being charged to keep, that we make sure that the skill set and knowledge necessary is provided to our staff throughout the institution. I work in close partnership with our medical campus colleagues because we have a majority of our employees that reside and work on the medical campus as well. We are one university, and so knowledge is powerful when it is shared knowledge and a shared understanding across the entire enterprise. And so in this space, some of the things that we are looking at doing is also standing up what it means for WashU Leads. This is a collaboration unlike anything you've seen in higher ed, in which students and student affairs folks are coming together with academic affairs folks, for faculty, coming together with operations, where we're gonna define what it means to lead here. And no matter whether you're learning about leadership as a student, undergrad or graduate, you're learning about it as a faculty member in the classroom or moving into an administrative role, or you're in a staff position and you're looking to grow within the university, you're gonna have a common definition, common nomenclature, and language that you can use around what it means here. Because we want to make sure that when we talk about WashU leadership, it's not just about the tactical work you do every day, it's also about how you lead as a servant, also how you lead as a civic member of this community in the city of St. Louis and the region at large. So we believe that to create a culture that recognizes the value of our staff is gonna be essential. Next, we talk about the advancement of sustainability in university operations. This is exciting because you don't often see this type of work in strategic plans for a university. Go search. I guarantee you won't see it very often. So I think this is brilliant to do this. Our students care about things that maybe when I was in undergrad or were not something that was on our radar. But they fully expect us to be an environmental steward so that we leave the world for their children and their grandchildren better, in some ways, hopefully, than we found it. But to raise those issues and to have those conversations. We will be doing amazing research in this area, amazing things around academic pedagogy, but there's a real opportunity as we think about our university operations and how we transport our students across campus, across this city. What about moving from gas vehicles to electrification of our fleet? And by the way, we are doing that. So that's a hand clap. That is a big feat. Okay. Please don't let me minimize the effort it takes to do things that seem small, but it is important because that is us showing not only environmental stewardship for addressing the concerns of our student population and our campus community, but also being responsible in the city and region and working with other partners to influence the work that they're doing with Ameren and other vendors that affect that type of work. Also fostering a culture of talent management. We have to be able to recruit and retain talented people. It's always nice when you see the announcements, we've hired X, right? What is happening between that hire date and when they decide to transition from the institution makes all the difference in the world. We not only want them to want to be here, we want them to want to stay here because of WashU and because of their wonderful experience connecting with the city of St. Louis. It is because of this that I made the decision to, after listening to multiple stakeholder feedback and coming into this role, about where there were opportunities and where there were barriers in our ability to really identify and find the right talent, but to keep them here and help them feel a sense of belonging, that we expanded the Office of Human Resources to also include institutional equity. When you change systems, you can change outcomes. A singular policy, a singular person, or a singular act is not going to change a system. It has to be a holistic approach where all folks are moving in the same direction. And if human resources are the keepers of creating the culture and the policies that affect the way in which we work every day, then you want to make sure that the right talent and knowledge resides in that office so that they're thinking broadly about how to support this new researcher that we just recruited who needs to bring in this staff, but maybe there's things in particular that they are used to. Maybe we help to connect them in the community with things that remind them of home or feel a sense of belonging, or whether that's everything from how they worship to the types of food that they may like to eat. The traditional HR person is not gonna think about that to that level. But someone who's thinking about institutional equity, diversity, inclusion, they would add to that conversation. But instead of having these people separated, I wanna bring the teams together. So I'm excited about the work that will happen there. The last one is around enabling economically impactful supplier diversity. And the reason why I emphasize economically impactful as a phrase that we include in here is because every institution talks about their economic impact to the community. We have No problem. They could join the conversation. Just put them on speaker. So we talk about the amount of impact we have because we have 18,000 employees. We're the second, arguably with BJC, the largest employer in the city of St. Louis and in this region. So we're a powerhouse. We have a lot of spend in terms of our $4.5 billion enterprise and the operating expenses that we put out year over year. And who's benefiting from that is the question we have to ask ourselves. A commitment to being in St. Louis, for St. Louis, and I've lovingly added the little supplement with St. Louis, as I strongly believe with communities of color, they want you to do things with them, not for them, right? So as we think about that, how do we strategically partner with minority-owned businesses to help to ensure that they are scaling and growing with this region? Not just only with WashU, right? We can only do so much, but we can't save the whole region, right? But how are we being strategic in the partnerships that we have and the influence we have to make sure we're bringing the best resources, the best opportunities, and helping these businesses to scale as we grow? And as we are entering new markets, are there opportunities to work with small businesses that can be able to come up with new innovations or ways to solve some of our problems that we have? So with that said, I am gonna move into talking about, no, this is not moving. All right, excellence without exception. What does that mean? There are many important tasks and decisions that I think we can and must make as leaders in any role or organization that we find ourselves. And throughout my career, I've been fascinated with exploring how we individually and collectively sort of leverage the talents of those around us in a way that we're able to collaborate to really realize our greatest ambitions. Earlier, Pam shared that I had come up with this, I've developed this action learning framework called E3. Engage, educate, empower. Engage is about meeting people where they are without judgment, right? Wherever your skill set is, wherever your knowledge is, whatever emotional or mental space you are in that moment, but trying to understand it first. By understanding it, you are able to better devise solutions for where there are knowledge gaps and where there are skill deficits, so that you can be able to engage with them, bring them along the journey with you, make sure that they're integrated into task force, work teams, committees. In higher ed, we love committees. I think we have a policy on policies for committees. That's how much we love committees. But getting them engaged, because people will buy in more when they can see their voice and their thoughts embedded in a solution. They're excited about it. And if things don't go as planned, as they sometimes, that happens, they're more likely to extend grace to themselves and to others and to get up and to keep going forward, leaning into the failure because you're learning. With the empower piece, this is critical because sometimes we get so excited about the knowledge we're giving that we fail to move out of the way. When you have built up, you've identified great talent, you've given them the resources, cultivated, they buy into the strategy, they build great teams. You have to, as a leader, understand that you ebb and flow between leadership and followership roles, and that it is important to be able to stand behind them and lift them up. I think those who seek the limelight sometimes miss the power of the true power behind the success, because the true power is in the journey, the story behind it, what got you there. That's where the learning, that's where the brilliance, those are the things that will carry an organization beyond any particular person in any specific role. So I really, in these 4 areas, think a lot about how are we changing the system, how are we creating a structure that if, I walked outside in the bunny bread truck, I need to make sure that we have systems, policies, structures in place, that it is irrespective of who stands in that role, because it is tied to the mission of the organization. And our employees are doing that every day. They have been hard at work the last 18 months since I've been here, and really leaning into this new way of thinking and existing. I think this approach is intentional, and it has to be, because you have to be able to flex between those leader and follower roles. And it also is important because it allows you space to embrace organizational history which is important. We don't want to erase history. We want to understand it, and we want to figure out how do we learn from that, and then what are the traditions and ways of existing do we want to preserve and celebrate as a part of uniquely who we are? And what are the things that maybe we're not so proud of it anymore? But how do you shift that in a way that it's more inclusive and reflective of the people that you're serving now? In terms of decision-making as it relates to how we're navigating through these styles, I think it's important that we understand that outside of intention, we want to make sure that the talent capabilities of our employees are such that we can calibrate it to the shifting tides of strategy change, right? As I said before, you can set a goal, you can go down a pathway, and if you've ever been to New Orleans, this definitely will happen to you. You're driving down the street, you're coasting, and you hit a pothole, right? Unexpectedly. So in leadership, I think you have to make sure, and it's definitely what we are doing here, is that we're trying to bring in the talent, build a strategy, work on refining things that we may not be great at, but not highlighting what our weaknesses are, focusing on our strengths so that we can support the academic enterprise, the research aspirations of the university, and ultimately a diverse and inclusive student experience. So in closing, I want to share a bit of a personal journey, and I think we're going to then have some Q&A. I talked to you at the beginning about how your personal experiences will oftentimes shape the way in which you engage as a leader. I grew up as one of 5 children to a single mother in the projects on the west end of St. Louis. Later, by the time I was 11 years old, I was orphaned, and so I stand before you, rising into adulthood and to the professional that I am today, having come through the Missouri foster care system. Now, you wouldn't know that from listening to me and hearing all that pedigree, right? It has been through hard work and understanding that you can set out to a goal. It may not work out the way you planned originally, but if you wrap yourself around people who believe in you and the strategy that you have, that you can be able to still be successful. I want to also leave you all with this as you think about ways in which you can support our institution and the university strategic plan through whatever way. Sometimes it's through financial resources. Sometimes it's through relationships and connections. Sometimes it's through the brilliance that you can add value by serving on different committees or councils, and we can be able to draw and build from that. But I want you to remember this. If you believe in the power of people, and we believe in the people at WashU, our staff are amazing and second to none. We can get to where we want to be. If we can continue to consistently nurture a culture of trust, because people will follow a leader they trust, even if they don't have the clearest vision. And to be unapologetically courageous. As I said before, being in leadership doesn't mean you will always be liked, or it doesn't mean that you will always be the person that is elevated or celebrated. But it does mean that if you are focused on the mission and you do what is right because it is right, it usually lands where it's supposed to in the end. I believe strongly in the power of what is possible, as I've added to the Webster's Dictionary, possibilitarian. So I just made that word up because I couldn't find one to describe behaviors. I think as human beings, we oftentimes spend much of our lives trying to seek an understanding of why we are here, what our purpose is. For our university community, this strategic plan is providing them purpose. And for the first time, it is allowing staff to play a critical role in how their passions and talents align with moving the mission of Washington University forward in support of our research and academic aspirations. As a leader, I think it is your responsibility to build those relationships of trust because they amplify voices that are oftentimes oppressed, suppressed, or repressed for various reasons. And by doing so, we can ensure that there's light that is shed on the many possibilities of what we can realize together. Whether you lead a small team or a large complex organization, there are some basic things that must exist. A tremendous amount of vision, a belief in the collective brilliance of people, an ability to cultivate trust and collaborate across dissenting opinions, and a steadfast commitment to being courageous in the work that you do in believing that anything is possible. So as I close and take questions on details of the work that we are embarking upon, I encourage you to be bold, be brilliant, unapologetically courageous, open up your pocketbooks and wallets to support the institution in the things that we are doing, especially to achieve operational excellence, because we want you to be able to not only diversify the way in which you help the institution, but diversify the way in which you talk about how an institution's ability to be a perpetual organization is important. And our operations, if you think of it, think of us like the mortar that holds the brick together. Without it, we may have beautiful pieces of material, but it won't be something that is brilliant for others to enjoy, to be able to take advantage of in years to come. So thank you. I look forward to taking any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. I think we have some microphones out. If someone has a question, they can, there's one in the back there, Blair. Okay.
Thank you. First of all, this morning, I looked you up. And, well, welcome to Washington University. And I guess it's better to say welcome home, too. Yes, a native. Wonderful. It did strike me also this morning that you are amongst a large group of women assisting the university move forward, and Pam talked about that, but I think that's a really, number one, remarkable and outstanding impact on the university and the community. The question I have is this. So I moved here in 1974 from San Antonio. And my husband and I purchased a home in University City. But in those first couple of years, I was overtaken by the fact that we have a city that's a city and a county, and we have a county with something like 90 municipalities. And you are sitting in the midst of that with the job you have to do. And you acknowledged greatly the interaction with the city of St. Louis. But where are you finding yourself today with St. Louis County? You live with University City and Clayton. How is that impacting on how you see what you have? And I mean, you did just such an outstanding job of talking about empowerment and leading with looking into everything. Where are you finding yourself with those two other municipalities in another county?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, and thank you for welcoming me home as well. I'm going to walk around because it has been really difficult for me to stay at that podium, but I have honored what you all have told me to do. So I will move a little bit as I answer these next questions. We are unique as an institution in that we sit across 4 municipalities. Most universities do not have that challenge. They deal with one local government entity. I have to tell you, it has been a learning experience. But this is my approach to it, and what I have been doing and will continue to do is it's about relationship building. People want to just know that they're heard most of the time. They don't like surprises. Human beings, most of us talk about, we want to be in the know, we want to be anchored, we want to have a sense of certainty. As an institution, we can't always guarantee that. No one can. However, we can guarantee you that we will always be willing to sit at the table, have a conversation, and listen. And whatever resolutions we think are mutually beneficial to our institution as we serve our students and our community members, faculty and staff who reside and are often citizens of these municipalities and the county, that we're always thinking broadly about that. Some of the ways in which I want to think about operational excellence as it relates to our relationships with the city is around that economically impactful supplier diversity. To find out what they're doing and how we can avoid duplicating the work that they already have created. So there's been lots of data and research and meetings we've had so that I, coming back home, having been away for many, many years, can understand what has changed in the landscape with that. So it's really about having an open dialogue, nurturing relationship, and quite honestly, our greatest asset for many of the municipalities that surround us sometimes is seen as challenging to our neighbors, our students, but we love them. And we have to remember that they are at a phase in their life where they're learning to grow into adulthood and to make decisions. And so we want to make sure we maintain good relationships with the community associations, with our local government officials. And that also extends up to how we manage relationships with the state. Our institution has recently brought on, and some may have seen this, but our chancellor has talked about wanting to have individual that is focused on in St. Louis for St. Louis. Being sort of a face and a liaison between the institution and making sure those relationships are intentionally cultivated and nurtured so we can be collaborative in the work we do going forward as opposed to being perceived as oppositional, because we do deal with a city and a county, with municipalities, right? And our campuses are uniquely situated between St. Louis City, St. Louis County, Clayton, U-City, right? And so I think it's just important to remember that in this work that we're doing from an operational perspective is we believe in having inclusive conversations, making sure we advocate for our students and what their needs are, but also that we're being intentional about how we as an institution give back or make an impact as well. So we're being responsible stewards in the growth and the thriving of this region as well. So thank you for that question.
Thank you for coming and talking to us. I had a question. With a campus like Washington University that has a lot of affluence and a lot of endowment, a lot of money, what steps do you take to make this really feel welcoming to everyone, where everyone feels like they belong and everyone feels like there's a place for them here?
Thank you. Here's the thing. Everyone on this campus, regardless of what their role is or connection to the institution, shares in that responsibility. No one person, no one policy, no one project or initiative is going to create feelings of belonging, right? And so some of the things that we are trying to do is through our Leadership Institute that we're going to be rolling out in March, embedded in that is understanding how do you nurture an environment where people feel connected, right? Also, when we talk about new initiatives, we're looking at who's at the table to ensure that there are inclusive voices that are reflective of our institution, not only now, but also the institution we want to be in the future. It is important as well as we think about human resources and how we approach our benefit structures, which we've made some pretty significant changes in the last 18 months around how we're supporting our employees when we bring them on board so that the things outside of their day-to-day work, that they feel like they have resources they can lean on. That's everything from how they're planning for retirement when they enter in to how they take care of healthcare and how we support even our women and maternal health and things at the institution. And so I think it's not one person's role. It's really in how we make decisions and how we show up as leaders and how we engage and interact with others. It's about how we hire. And if you look at the leadership team for operations, it is a very diverse team. I wanted diversity not just in some of these categorical ways where we look at race or gender, but also diversity in thought and experiences. So I have individuals who have industrial experience. I have individuals who've been in the military. I have folks who've worked at institutions, in corporate, small organizations, large complex, because they bring perspective to helping us with the decision-making process that ultimately can affect the environment that we're stewarding in whether a person feels that they belong or they're connected or this is a place in which they can grow and thrive. And at the end of the day, I think as the leader, I'll personalize this, as the leader in this space, it is ultimately my responsibility to walk the talk. So when I am saying I'm committed to this, I tell people, listen less to what I say, but watch what I do and judge me by that. So I think leadership has to also be about not just saying nice words in front of a podium and in front of an audience and they feel good about it, but what do you do when no one is watching and actual decisions are being made that impact real lives? And so I think that's a big part of my particular philosophy, my approach, and the work that I'm personally doing, but also that of which I have charged my leadership team to do. I love all these hands. I just can't keep up with where they are.
Hi. I'd like to build on Suzanne's question and also on your final comment about bricks and mortar. I moved here 12 years ago. I live in the neighborhood. I absolutely feel thrilled to be this close to Washington University, and I love the campus. It's absolutely gorgeous, one of my favorite places to walk. But I have a question about how much real estate the university owns in the periphery of this particular campus, and what steps you're taking to make sure that we preserve the architecture and the wonderful buildings that are nearby. And I don't know whether that is your responsibility, but it's a question that I have.
Well, you just gave me a wonderful out. It is real estate does not fall under my purview of control. However, I will say this. Our institution as a part of, because I do work closely being responsible for capital projects and facilities, I work closely with our real estate team members. As a part of our conversations, whenever we talk about acquisition of land and even in the renovation of existing buildings or in the creation of new buildings, we are constantly thinking about how those assets are impacting the environment around us. How do they complement or detract from what already exists? We think about things and have conversation about everything from noise levels, pollution, foot traffic. I mean, there is a lot that goes into when we make a decision to put a building up. It's not just about it being aesthetically pleasing, but how will it be experienced by those on and in proximity to our campus. And so I think if it's helpful in any way, I want you to know that there is intentional thought that goes into that. We have a master plan that was developed 50 years ago that we have been very much so trying to stay committed to and in alignment with how we build out our campus. But we also want to allow ourselves to have permission to be innovative and to move into the city in different and creative ways so that we can be a part of helping to build and add additional value to the city of St. Louis. And for me, I have to tell you, I'm more excited about the work that we do there and what potentially impact that can have, given I shared with you all I grew up in the West End community. At that time, it was a housing project. And so to see the changes that have occurred in this city and to know that WashU can be a positive contributor and driver of that, that is exciting. Like, who doesn't wake up and think about that?
Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
And again, thank you for coming home. I would like to know, how can you help with the inequity in salary across campus?
Okay. You know you loaded that question for me. But I'm gonna take a stab at it. Right. So I have not experienced yet in my career, even when I was abroad, a question like this not presenting in some form. I think that here's where we are. As an institution that is a leading employer in the region, we want to make sure that a part of our strategy of recruiting and retaining talent is that we are competitive. Higher education as an industry, historically, has not paid to the same as the market for corporate. That's a fact. That's not a WashU thing. That's not a St. Louis thing. That is a fact across the sector globally. However, as we have gone on the other side of this pandemic, we have realized that the way in which our employees think about the work they do, how they connect with an organization, we too, as an employer, have to be more creative and also innovative in how we embellish benefits. It's not just about a salary. I actually am always cautious of employees who only focus on the salary when they're thinking about an opportunity with the institution. It is absolutely important because you need to survive and you have bills to pay, okay? So I understand that. However, when you talk about an institution that has strategic and visionary foresight and we are mission driven, you first and foremost want to make sure that you tie into the mission. Because when you are passionate about something and you're doing what you have been called to do in a purpose-driven life, other things fall in place in the way that they should. Some of the things that I have worked on, as I shared before, is revamping and really looking at and really scrutinize our benefits. Because if I can find creative ways to offer more or to reduce costs where possible, then that adds value to our employees as well. We are looking in the near future to embark upon a compensation study, because in order for us to know if we really are paying more or less and where we are in competition, we need data to do that. Experience and perception is an important data point, but it's not a singular one as a leader in which I would be a responsible steward to make a decision on. And so we have to engage in intentional and structured ways of which we're going to figure out what's the right pay and what's not. This is something that's often overlooked, and because I believe this audience is mixed, about how many people are maybe employees of the university. I just want to get a sense. Okay. Some of the things that we have done that may not be, front headline news is over the last 18 months, we have made some strides in moving different roles and their pay to market and increasing those. I've also worked very closely with the finance team, in which we now have positioned within our budget a set aside that we use so that we can be able to do salary adjustments without departments or leaders having to cannibalize positions they have to be able to pay people that they need to be able to keep or to be competitive in the market. But those are systemic changes that did not happen overnight. They took time. And we did not get to the place that we're in as an institution or as an employer relative to market overnight. And so I want to make sure that people understand this work is actively being engaged in, but it takes time to undo these things. I also believe that in doing this, we need to make sure we always have an ear for what the concerns are. So I welcome and have an open door policy, and also through my website, you can be able to submit questions, suggestions, ideas for any of the employees and community members in terms of any of the work that we're doing to support our workforce. But it has to be done with intentionality. And I cannot answer on a singular incident, but I can tell you the work that we've done and what we are looking at doing. In order to have and cultivate a healthy and ambitious, talented workforce, we have to be competitive in salary, in benefits, in on-campus experience, in support and resources in the community. And those are things that we are hyper-focused on doing to get us where we need to be, and to make sure that in leadership roles that we are also seeing an increase in diversity. Because if we have a more diverse leadership group, you are going to, by product of that, see more diversity in the hiring. It's a fact that humans tend to hire for comfort, right? And so I think that's very important. And at the end of the day, I'll say this. One of the charges that was given to me when the chancellor extended this opportunity for me to come to WashU, the very first thing he said to me was that I want you to come here and I want you to find ways that we can better support our staff and to make sure that they feel valued, that they are seen, and that they are heard. And that has been my commitment to him. It's also my commitment to you, for those who are employees, and my commitment to those of you who are looking to support the institution, whether financially or otherwise, that we are working not just in the academic and research, but our mission is only gonna move forward through the people. And so I thank you all for these great questions and this opportunity to come before you. So I appreciate you. I would be remiss if I didn't do something. I'm probably gonna get in trouble for it later, but I'm better at asking for forgiveness than permission anyway. So I have someone that joined us today that was unexpected to me, so I did not know. And I told you about life journeys, right? How there's people that come into your life that can help you to hold your hand and kick your butt at the same time. My high school basketball coach, Brenda Hayes Taylor, is here. So I just wanted to acknowledge her, and she brought some of her colleagues with her as well. And I just appreciate the continuous support through the years of just having my back and also being in there in unexpected ways. She was really good at that too, always popping up when we didn't know where she was. but it kept us on track. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, Dr. Bolton, please don't leave the stage, because another thing that Dr. Bolton oversees is our Bare Necessities shop. I don't know if you're aware. So, our manager's here today, Kelly Bogdan, but we want to present you with a token of our appreciation. We're so grateful for your update from the university and sharing with us all the exciting things that are going on. I've been part of the community for more than 30 years, and I can see great strides in all these different areas. Also want to invite everyone to the Frick Forum for lunch. Dr. Bolton might be here, yes, as well. And please, if you can, join us on February 15th for our lecture. Dr. Hillary Elfenbein is here as well. You might check with her in the lobby. And we'll hope to see you at our next event. And please remember, if you want to join the Women's Society, if you haven't already, we'll be out there too. So have a great day. Thank you.